I'm Christina Perez, 33, a restaurant manager. I walked into Ambrosia, my flagship, for my parents' 35th anniversary. I adjusted my dress, took a deep breath. Everything felt absolutely flawless. My father, Robert, was giving a grand speech. I smiled, truly believing this night would finally be different for me. I saw the recognition in my father's eyes, quickly replaced by fury. He stopped his speech, and the music cut out. My father said, "Christina, what are you doing here? You weren't invited. Leave now." His public rejection hit me like a physical blow. I was utterly mortified. But that wasn't the worst part. Do you know who actually paid for the entire $62,000 celebration? To understand that pain, you need to know where I came from. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, everything was about appearances. Success wasn't lived, it was performed. I remember my mother's sharp reminders before every holiday dinner, my father's warning, "Your job is to reflect the family's success." Our smiles were rehearsed, our lives a stage play. Behind closed doors, their nitpicking chipped away at me. I craved their genuine approval, convinced that if I excelled enough, they would finally see me. But the moment I pursued something outside their definition of prestige, I was branded a disappointment. Standing there years later, humiliated in public, it hit me with brutal clarity: the lie had become their truth. To them, I was invisible then, and I still was now. But unlike my siblings, I chose a different path. And in their world where image was everything, that choice was unforgivable. My siblings, James and Catherine, were the Perez prototypes. James was destined for success. He effortlessly slid into the high-flying world of finance, following my father's path. Catherine, the darling daughter, chose medicine, a profession deemed noble, prestigious, and perfect for the society pages. And then there was me. At 18, when I told them I was applying to culinary arts school, my mother just laughed. My father's words still echo: "Cooking is a hobby, Christina. You need a real career to reflect our name." Their dismissal cut deeper than they realized. I chose food, creativity, and service. They chose titles and tradition. At every family dinner, I watched James and Catherine bask in praise for their careers and their status, while I sat quietly, introduced with a single word: Christina. The implication was clear: I didn't measure up. I was the odd one out, the creative black sheep. My professional success meant nothing to them. My currency was passion, not prestige, and that became my original sin, the mark that made me an eternal outsider in my own home. I spent my entire childhood feeling like I was wearing shoes that never fit. James and Catherine got the perfect leather loafers. Mine were heavy work boots covered in flour and ambition. I spoke their polished language, yet they only heard my silent defiance. I realized I was just a character in their perfect little drama. If I couldn't be their darling, I would be my own success story. I had to build a life where passion was respected, not ridiculed. My kitchen became my refuge, my silent rebellion. I chose grit over their gold. But how hard did I really have to fight just to be acknowledged? At 18, my parents made it clear no financial help for my trivial hobby, so I became relentless. I worked 3 brutal jobs just to pay for my culinary degree. I was a dishwasher, a waitress, and a prep cook, all before my classmates woke up. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. While James was enjoying fraternity parties and Catherine was studying in pristine dorms, my diet was entirely instant noodles and cheap coffee. I didn't have a safety net. My grit was the only thing keeping me upright. Every dollar I earned was a victory over their rejection. I finished my degree with honors, funding every single cent myself. No parental loan, no congratulatory dinner. Just me alone. I made a silent vow I would build something so undeniable they wouldn't be able to ignore me. That was my new definition of success. I didn't stop. By age 30, my hobby had grown into a regional restaurant chain. I named my flagship Ambrosia, Food of the Gods, a nod to the divine success I was building myself. My personal income, the income I earned from food, now comfortably surpassed James's and Catherine's combined earnings. I was nationally recognized. My face was in magazines. I called home, hoping for one simple, "We're proud of you." My mother, Carol, deflected. "That's nice, Christina. Catherine just got a fellowship at Johns Hopkins. Have you seen her picture?" The line went dead. My undeniable triumph was simply ignored. Every award, every dollar, every successful opening, it was all a futile attempt to win their approval. I was their daughter, but I was still the outsider. The bitterness only intensified, and that bitterness led me to a huge, desperate mistake. I started using my money to buy the respect I couldn't earn. Every family gathering became a stage for my parents to perform their favoritism. James was introduced as VP of Investment Strategy. Catherine, Dr. Perez, cardiologist. When it came to me, my father would simply wave his hand and say, "Oh, this is just Christina." I felt like a glorified serving dish. I was feeding hundreds of people daily, creating jobs, generating millions, yet my title meant nothing to them. My worth was measured by their rigid standards. That constant dismissal was exhausting. It slowly poisoned my confidence until I finally cracked and decided, if they won't respect my success, I'll use my wealth to buy their temporary silence. I began to write the checks that defined my next chapter of desperate toil. I was desperate. If my grit and success weren't enough, maybe my wealth could finally buy me a seat at the table. My mother casually mentioned their mortgage trouble. I logged into the bank, made an anonymous deposit big enough to cover 3 months, and convinced myself they'd eventually figure it out and thank me. Next came Catherine. The Dr. Perez needed a down payment for her luxury condo. She never asked me, of course, but I heard my parents boasting about her brilliant saving strategy. I transferred the full amount, telling myself I was supporting my sister's prestigious career. My generosity was their silent license to keep judging my own. The biggest check was for James, the VP of Investment Strategy, who was secretly drowning in an $80,000 trading debt. I paid it off. The man who scoffed at my hobby needed my restaurant money to save his reputation. They never even asked me for the money, they just accepted the miracle. I was essentially a quiet, secret family bank. I sacrificed my own capital and comfort, desperate for the smallest sign of affection. My greatest financial achievement, my successful chain, had been reduced to a tool to earn the bare minimum, their presence. That led me to my final, most foolish gesture. The biggest check was for my parents' 35th anniversary. I decided it had to be at Ambrosia, my most successful venture. I thought, they can't ignore me on my own turf. The total cost was $62,000, and I quietly paid half of it, $31,000, without their knowledge. I wanted it to be perfect. I meticulously chose every detail: the imported orchids, the vintage champagne, the band that played my mother's favorite songs. This wasn't just a party, it was a desperate investment in my own happiness, a final attempt to merge my successful reality with their approval. On the day of the party, I was a nervous wreck. It felt like I was back at 18, presenting my dreams for judgment. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text, a call, anything to acknowledge my contribution. Silence. My hope was fragile, built on years of disappointment. Despite the silence, I dressed up and walked through the door. I told myself, tonight is the night I stop being just Christina. I believed that by hosting their most cherished event, I'd finally earn my family's unspoken love. Was I a fool for thinking a $31,000 sacrifice could buy respect? I convinced myself this $31,000 sacrifice was the final deposit into the family acceptance fund. This wasn't just another dinner, it was a ritual of reconciliation. After years of silent support and success, I believed they couldn't possibly ignore me when I literally controlled the venue and the entire celebration. I envisioned my father giving his speech, then pausing, looking at me, and offering a heartfelt, unprompted thank you. That single moment of recognition. I called it the turning point. I truly believed they would finally see the depth of my love, a love I expressed through effort and finance, since they never responded to emotion. That was the mindset I carried as I walked into Ambrosia in that opening scene. I wasn't just entering a room, I was walking toward my destiny. My $31,000 secret was my ticket to belonging. I thought the worst they could do was ignore me, but I was wrong. The reality was much, much harsher. I stood there, reeling from my father's scream, "You weren't invited. Leave now." But the shock wasn't that they rejected me, it was realizing the rejection was calculated. They had deliberately omitted me from the guest list for the party that I, their unloved daughter, had spent $31,000 to perfect. I searched the crowd for a defender. James stood beside father, his face blank. Catherine looked down at her champagne flute, ignoring my silent plea. They were complicit. My siblings, whose debts I'd paid, whose careers I'd financially supported, were letting me be publicly humiliated. That moment was the full stop on my hope. The $31,000, the 3 jobs, the years of struggling, it all led to this final, crushing rejection. It wasn't just a party, it was my last desperate audition, and I failed not because I wasn't good enough, but because I was never supposed to be on stage. I suddenly saw my father's face not with pain, but with absolute clarity. No amount of money, success, or sacrifice would ever change their minds. The game was over. I had lost. But the loss brought me something crucial. As I stood in the dead silence of my own restaurant, facing my father's contempt, a strange feeling washed over me, clarity. The fog of years of denial lifted. I finally saw the truth. No amount of money, no level of success, no grand gesture, not even $31,000, would ever earn their acceptance. I look back at the years of working 3 jobs, bailing James out of debt, and paying for Catherine's down payment. I hadn't been giving, I had been begging. I was paying a permanent membership fee to a club that didn't want me. The realization was painful, but it was also profoundly freeing. In that instant, I stopped being the daughter desperate for approval and started being Christina, the CEO. I was done. My next move wouldn't be about saving face, it would be about recognizing my own worth. If they wanted a performance, I was about to give them the final act of a lifetime. I felt my blood turn to ice. My father expected tears, but I gave him the opposite. I took a glass from a passing waiter and tapped it with a spoon. The sound sliced through the silence. My voice, usually soft, was steady and powerful. "Before I leave, I have one thing to say." I let my gaze sweep the ballroom, the orchids, the crystal, the jazz band. I was hosting a party I wasn't invited to. My father is correct. I wasn't invited, but I'm the one who paid for it. Every single detail. All $31,000 of my contribution. Robert's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Guests, their peers, turned to whisper. The first blow had landed, and it felt incredible. I turned to James next. "James, I hope you're enjoying the champagne. Just remember, it was bought with the same hobby money that saved your career from an $80,000 trading debt 6 months ago." His hand gripped our father's arm, his title suddenly meaningless under the weight of truth. "And Catherine, the Dr. Perez who always judged my lack of prestige, I'm glad you love your luxury condo. I hope it's comfortable, because I paid the full down payment for you." Tears welled in her eyes as humiliation spread across her face, her medical peers looking on. Finally, I delivered the last strike, And to the architects of this beautiful facade, Mom and Dad, I hope you enjoyed the lack of a mortgage payment this quarter. That was my gift to you. The silence that followed was crushing. I had stripped them bare in front of their entire social circle. I set the glass down, turned, and walked through the glittering room I had paid for. I didn't look back. My revenge wasn't in leaving, it was in leaving them with the truth. I left them in that suffocating silence, but my night wasn't over. Ambrosia is my restaurant, and every square inch is covered by my cameras and my loyal staff. I drove to my office upstairs and pulled up the security feed. I wanted to witness the fallout. I wanted vindication. My father, Robert, the pillar of the Perez family, was trembling. He didn't chase me. He just stood there, watching his carefully constructed facade fumble. The humiliation was absolute. He wasn't just angry at me, he was furious that his social peers now knew about his financial vulnerability. The guests, the same people who valued titles over true success, started silently filing out. The Perez perfection had been exposed as a sham, and they wanted no part of the mess. The music stopped entirely. It was a beautiful, chaotic disaster. My sacrifice had bought them the most humiliating party of their lives. James, the so-called VP, desperately tried to intercept departing couples, whispering excuses. He was pleading for his reputation, not for his sister. The money I had loaned him bought his silence earlier, but now his shame spoke volumes. His panic was the sweetest validation I could have asked for. Catherine sat down on the floor in her expensive gown, defeated. The Dr. Perez label meant nothing when the source of her wealth was revealed. Her tears weren't for my pain, they were for the loss of her social standing. That lack of genuine empathy was the final confirmation I needed to seal the door on them forever. My mother, Carol, the architect of the facade, simply stared at the empty room. Her perfect masterpiece was irrevocably destroyed by her own contempt. My silent payment was meant to buy love. Instead, it bought me the ultimate victory, the sight of their world crashing down. I finally took back my narrative. I closed the security feed. The $31,000 was a small price to pay for the clarity and closure I felt in that moment. I didn't hate them anymore. I was simply free of them. My revenge wasn't loud, it was surgical. It was precise. It gave me back my worth. So what happened to the Perez family after that night? For the first 48 hours, my phone became a war zone. I received an absolute barrage of calls, mostly from James and Catherine, desperate to cover their tracks. Their voicemails weren't apologies, they were furious demands, panicking that their friends knew the truth about their financial status. My mother, Carol, sent one pathetic text about ruining the family name. But it was my father's message that solidified my choice. You are cut off. You will pay for this public display. You are not my daughter. The social backlash was immediate. James's $80,000 debt wasn't a secret anymore. His integrity at the investment firm was questioned, leading to an immediate leave of absence. Catherine's prestige evaporated when the hospital committee learned the brilliant savings for her condo came from her waitress sister. The most poetic justice came with the mortgage. My 1/4 payment was enough to hide the problem, but not solve it. Within 2 months, Robert was forced to sell the Connecticut mansion in the heart of their facade because he couldn't cover the payment publicly. That night, I read my father's text one last time. You are not my daughter. I smiled. He finally gave me what I deserved, permission to leave. I blocked their numbers, changed my private email, and deleted every photo. I officially closed the door on the Perez family and that toxic drama. My $31,000 was gone, but the clarity I gained was priceless. I lost a family that never truly accepted me, but I gained my self-respect and my identity. I was no longer an invisible appendage, I was a successful businesswoman. The chains of seeking approval had finally shattered. I was ready to start a new life. The silence on my phone was no longer painful, it was peaceful. It meant freedom. I realized revenge isn't about hurting them, it's about healing yourself. I took a deep breath of the air, not of Connecticut facade, but of genuine, hard-earned success. A year passed. My energy, which had been wasted on seeking approval, now fueled my business. I opened 2 new Ambrosia locations, one in Boston, one in Miami. I finally experienced success for its own sake, not as a desperate attempt to impress my unloving parents. That was genuine achievement. My life is now filled with small, authentic joys. I still eat instant noodles sometimes, but now they are a choice, not a necessity. I found new, supportive relationships, a family built on respect and shared passion, not on mandatory bloodlines and bank balances. I occasionally hear updates. James and Catherine are working at lesser firms, still struggling to maintain a lifestyle built on debt and deceit. Robert and Carol moved to a smaller apartment. Their social standing is irreparably damaged. I feel pity, but zero guilt. My true victory wasn't the public takedown. The victory was learning that their rejection didn't define me. Their opinion was their cage, not mine. The best revenge is not an action, but a state of being, successful, happy, and authentically yourself, far away from their toxicity. If you're struggling for approval, know this: stop paying the price. Stop buying your way in. The people who truly value you don't need a $31,000 party. Build your own table. Sit at your own head, and never let someone else's definition of success diminish your own hard-earned grit. My name is Christina Perez. I'm a restaurant CEO, a self-made millionaire, and a survivor. The day I walked out of that party was the day I truly walked into my life. Remember, you don't need revenge to win. You just need to realize that you've been winning all along. The chaos of the party was external, but the real finality happened in my car. My phone buzzed constantly with their frantic, unhinged texts. I didn't read them. The moment my father gave me permission to leave, the noise stopped mattering. I finally had the clarity I'd been paying for. I blocked every one of them: James, Catherine, Mom, Dad. Then I went through my photo gallery and deleted every family picture older than 6 years. It was a small, surgical act, but it felt like ripping out a painful stitch. I wasn't running, I was systematically removing myself from a toxic system. Within a week, I changed my apartment, my private cell number, and my mailing address. They couldn't reach me, and more importantly, I didn't want to reach them. The $31,000 I spent on the party bought me this new life. A life where my peace was more important than their approval. My revenge wasn't the public scandal, it was the quiet self-respect I regained when I finally cut the cord. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. If someone doesn't value your worth, you don't need to fight them, you just need to disappear from their narrative. That is true, powerful freedom. You can't drop a truth bomb like that without collateral damage. The Connecticut social scene ate it up. The story about the $80,000 debt became a cautionary tale. Their perfect, polished image was replaced by the reality: a family on the brink, saved only by the daughter they ignored. James was the first to fall. The firm couldn't tolerate the rumor of a VP of investment strategy being saved from bankruptcy by his chef sister. He lost his job and his prestige. His brilliant career, the thing my father always praised, was built on a house of cards I had unwittingly propped up. Catherine's fate was similar. The Dr. Perez title lost its shine. Her colleagues, who rely on peer respect, quietly distanced themselves. She sold the luxury condo, the one I paid the down payment for, and moved to a modest rental. Their entire world was defined by money, and I took the foundation away. The mansion was the final symbol. Robert and Carol, unable to cover the mortgage publicly, were forced to sell. They moved into a small condo in a mediocre suburb. Their friends stopped calling. Their silence wasn't pride. It was the deafening sound of their social death. I never spoke to any of them again. They tried reaching me through lawyers, but my response was one word: block. I owed them nothing, not a cent, and certainly not my time. The revenge was complete. I stripped away their illusions, forcing them to confront the fragile reality they had created. I lost a family, but I gained something far more valuable: my inner peace. The ache of seeking their approval was replaced by the calm of profound self-respect. The fight was over. The pain was receding. I realized the true reward wasn't their suffering, but the freedom that came from letting go. I shifted my focus entirely to my work. My business wasn't just my career, it was the ultimate proof that I didn't need their outdated definition of worth. My success was my own, built on 3 brutal jobs and instant noodles, not on daddy's connections or mommy's approval. That was a foundation that could never crack. The biggest reward wasn't seeing them fall, it was realizing my own potential. I opened 2 new Ambrosia locations in major cities, entirely self-funded. My restaurants became symbols of true, uncompromised success. My revenue now exceeded the combined total of their former salaries and prestige. I found a new family in my team, people who respected my grit, not my last name. We celebrated milestones with authentic joy, not forced appearances. They understood that success tasted better when you built the kitchen yourself. This was the unconditional support I had always craved. The greatest freedom is knowing you don't need anyone's approval to breathe. The money I spent to try and buy love became the price of my emancipation. I had been looking for gold in their eyes, when the gold was inside me all along: my resilience, my talent, and my independence. People ask if I regret the public spectacle. I don't. It was the only language they understood. But true revenge is simple: you get well, you get rich, and you get out. Stop paying the fee for a life you were never meant to lead. Invest in yourself. That is the ultimate final realization. My name is Christina Perez. I'm a self-made entrepreneur, and the day I walked out on my family was the day I finally gave myself permission to win. The only approval you will ever need is your own. Thank you for listening to my story of how I took my life back. The wounds don't disappear overnight, but after I cut the cord, the pain morphed into a source of power. My entire youth had been spent trying to please ghosts. The struggle, the 3 jobs, the constant rejection that wasn't a punishment, it was my training ground for strength. I realized their definition of success, prestige, titles. The big house was just an elaborate financial disguise for insecurity. My success, built on actual grit and service, was tangible. It was real. I finally learned that my restaurant uniform was more honest than Catherine's designer suit. My new life rule is simple: if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive. Learning to say no to their drama, their requests, their very existence was the key. That $31,000 I spent wasn't a waste. It was the final, non-refundable payment for my lifetime subscription to self-respect. My team became my chosen family. They didn't care about the Perez name, they cared about the excellence we created together. We shared hard work and true respect, the kind of unconditional support I had always desperately sought from my biological relatives. I stopped living for the audience and started living for the artist. I stopped auditioning for roles in their lives and started writing my own script. My final realization was that my worth isn't a currency to be traded. It's a foundation to be lived on. I am enough, exactly as I am. I wanted my legacy to be built on my hands, not my heartache. Every success, every new restaurant, is a quiet defiance against the narrative they try to impose on me. That is the true revenge, transforming your deepest pain into your greatest power. Find your strength and live your truth. If you are the black sheep, the one who doesn't fit the mold, remember this: the mold was never meant for you. You were meant to break it. My journey taught me that silence is a weapon, and self-respect as armor. Walk away from what diminishes you. It will be the most valuable investment you ever make. Thank you for letting me share the story of how I stopped trying to earn love and started living my own. They tried a few final, desperate attempts to reach me through old friends and professional contacts. The message was always the same: they needed me, not loved me. The knowledge that their contact was purely transactional, always about money, made my choice to cut them off incredibly easy. No guilt. No looking back. I redefined wealth. It wasn't the mansion or the luxury car, it was the autonomy to choose where my energy goes and who benefits from my hard work. I started a small fund for aspiring female restaurateurs. Investing in people who earned it felt infinitely better than propping up the undeserving. The $31,000 I wasted on that party taught me the most important lesson: self-worth is not purchased, it is decided. Their rejection didn't diminish me, it purified my focus. Now, every decision I make is about building my life, not fitting into theirs. The absence of their drama is the greatest luxury I possess. No holiday stress, no financial demands, no veiled insults about my career. I am finally the CEO of my own life, not an employee in their dysfunctional company. This is what true financial and emotional freedom feels like. My life is no longer about proving my worth, it is about living my worth. That shift in perspective changed everything. But the most enduring lesson is the one I want to leave with you. To anyone out there who is the black sheep or the disappointment, stop playing their game. You can't win by their rules. Your strength lies in your independence. Cut the cord. Walk away. Their rejection is simply your permission to thrive elsewhere. The most devastating revenge is not an action you take against them, it's the beautiful, successful life you build without them. It's the moment you stop thinking about them entirely. That is the moment they lose all power, and you gain everything. You don't need their legacy or their money. Your greatest asset is the grit you developed when they forced you to fend for yourself. Use that foundation. Build something they can never understand and certainly can never take away. Build your own Ambrosia. My name is Christina Perez. I am the CEO of Ambrosia Restaurants. I didn't lose my family, I simply traded them for my peace, my prosperity, and my true self. Remember, you get to write the ending. Make sure it's a victorious one. Thank you for watching my story. I left the mansion in silence, but my phone didn't. The first 30 minutes were a barrage of desperation. They went from fury to pleading faster than I could drive to my new apartment. I had them pinned. I didn't answer. The greatest power in any toxic relationship is the ability to choose silence. James, the VP of investment, left the most telling voicemail. It wasn't about the family, it was about his reputation. You ruined my career. That $80,000 was private. If I lose my firm, I swear I'm coming for you, Christina. Catherine's text was pure panic. She feared her peers judging her for accepting money from her unsuccessful sister. She didn't care about the lie, she cared about the optics. I realized her doctor title was just another facade I had unwittingly purchased for them. My father's response wasn't a call, it was a cold, legal email. He claimed I had violated INDA and threatened a lawsuit for damages to the Perez reputation. He was still trying to control the narrative, but he forgot one thing: my silence was now my weapon. I replied with one word: truth. Downfall was instant, becoming the top story in Connecticut society. The irony was perfect. The party meant to solidify their status ended up publicly exiling them from the very circle they desperately craved. I immediately moved my personal accounts, canceled joint business affiliations, and sent a cease and desist to James's firm regarding his debt. I closed every single financial door. No more safety net, no more bailout, The Perez well had run dry as far as Christina was concerned. My mother, Carol, didn't contact me directly. Her despair was a silent, terrifying thing. She saw her life's masterpiece, the perfect family image, shattered. It wasn't hatred I saw in her eyes anymore. It was the realization that I had given her a truth she could never bury. And that was my victory. I woke up the next morning to an eerie silence. No buzzing, no texts, no drama. I made coffee in my quiet, small apartment, and it tasted like pure, unadulterated freedom. The $31,000 was gone, but the mental debt I had paid to them over 33 years was finally settled. I was rich in peace. I went to Ambrosia that day, not as a desperate daughter, but as the uncontested CEO. My staff looked at me with new respect. My worth was defined by the quality of my food and the loyalty of my team, not by the approval of 3 toxic, financially unstable people. I learned that the people who use your money to prop up their lies will always hate you for exposing the truth. Their fury was my greatest validation. It wasn't about the party, it was about the control they lost. And I was never giving that control back. Do I regret the $31,000? Not for a second. It was the entry fee for my freedom. It bought me a clean, spectacular break. That moment, standing on the stage and speaking my truth, was the most honest I had ever been. That is a feeling worth more than any inheritance. I took the final step and blocked their lawyers' emails and any known proxies. My life was officially separate. Your strength is not in how much you can endure for them, but how quickly you can walk away and reclaim your story. I finally stopped seeing myself through their eyes. The frantic calls stopped. The lawsuits never materialized. The sudden absence of war was unnerving at first, then beautiful. That's when I truly started to heal. For decades, I lived on a battleground, fighting for acceptance. Now, the quiet meant I had won the only fight that mattered, the one against myself. I didn't just shed a family, I shed a mental burden, the constant need to calculate my words, my income, my clothes, to meet their impossible standards. The energy I used to spend on them now goes into my business, my health, and the people who authentically cherish me. My worth isn't a check they can cash or a title they can bestow. It's in the steam of my kitchen, the quality of my food, and the loyalty of my team. I finally understood they couldn't diminish me because they never defined me in the first place. My self-definition is my armor. The $31,000 was the tuition fee for the best course I ever took, Emancipation 101. It taught me that freedom costs money, but sanity costs more. I paid the fee, got my diploma, and walked out the door. My receipt is the permanent, blessed silence on my cell phone. I am no longer auditioning for a role in the Perez family drama. My life is now a successful spin-off series featuring only characters who bring joy and value. The shift from being the black sheep to the golden CEO didn't happen when they failed. It happened when I stopped caring if they noticed. But this story isn't just my past, it's a blueprint for your future. If you are struggling, this is the lesson you need to hear. Your perceived flaws are your greatest strengths. Being the outsider gives you the clarity to see the illusion and the courage to burn the script. Don't try to blend in. Stand out, thrive elsewhere, and let your success be the quiet, unanswerable response. I have 3 rules for dealing with toxic families. 1. Never sacrifice your peace for their performance. 2. Never let them define your financial success. 3. Walk away entirely. You can't heal in the environment that made you sick. Distance is your deliverance. The Perez family story is over, and I am the author of the next chapter. It's a chapter filled with expansion, partnership, and unconditional love. Don't let their negative script become your destiny. Take the pen, tear up the old pages, and write a life that brings you joy. I occasionally think of them, They are where they belong, defined by their greed, living smaller, angrier lives. But I don't feel anger anymore, only pity and closure. The wound is closed. The healing is complete. My final act of revenge was giving myself the happiness they tried to deny me. To every black sheep out there, you are not defined by the rejection you receive, but by the resilience you show. Your true family is waiting for you to build it. I learned that family isn't defined by shared DNA, it's defined by shared respect and unconditional support. My true family turned out to be the people I hired. They celebrated my success without jealousy, and they offered help without demanding a fee. That is the true gold standard of a relationship. I began investing heavily in my team's future's tuition, housing aid, profit sharing. Money, once a weapon in my old life, became a tool for building community in my new one. I found joy in lifting others, a joy Robert and Carol never understood, because their existence was defined by keeping others down. I finally formed a relationship with a man who loves Christina, the CEO who started with nothing, not the Perez daughter with an inheritance promise. In his eyes, I am worthy because of my grit, my resilience, and my heart. That is the kind of love that grounds you, the kind I deserved all along. The ultimate act of defiance was my expansion. Every new Ambrosia location is a monument to the life they tried to prevent me from building. They wanted me small and needy. I chose to be vast and powerful. They lost the mansion, I built an empire. The math is simple. I stopped romanticizing the few good memories. You can't dwell on the crumbs when you're capable of baking the whole loaf. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. My future is defined by my courage to walk away and my ability to start over. The biggest price I paid wasn't the $31,000. It was the years I spent believing their lies about my value. Once I realized the truth, the money became irrelevant. Now, let me tell you, the black sheep, what true victory looks like. If you are the one constantly paying the emotional or financial fee for your family's failures, stop. You cannot win a game designed for you to lose. Your only goal is to escape the table. Do not give them one more dollar or one more moment of your precious, valuable time. The greatest revenge is not lowering yourself to their level. It is soaring so high that their insults sound like distant, irrelevant buzzing. Build your own mountain. Define your own view. And never, ever invite the people who tried to bury you to the summit. Revenge isn't about their suffering, it's about your healing. It's about getting so healthy and so genuinely happy that their toxicity can no longer find a foothold in your life. That is the true, final, beautiful victory. Your prosperity is their consequence. Choose to be the consequence they can't handle. I got one email from my mother 6 months later, a pathetic attempt to reconcile, because they needed help selling the small condo. The apology was still about the transaction. I deleted the email without reading past the first sentence. Silence is the only appropriate response to unearned apologies. The greatest gift I gave myself wasn't the wealth, it was the unconditional acceptance they never offered. I accepted the black sheep and turned her into a success story. Love yourself fiercely. Protect your peace ruthlessly. You are worthy of all the good things you build for yourself. My life is now my own masterpiece, and the final strokes are about the future. It's time to talk about the legacy I am building, not the one I was denied. This is the magnificent conclusion. My legacy isn't the Perez name, it's Ambrosia. It's the hundreds of jobs I've created, the quality I insist upon, and the culture of respect I foster. My name now stands for something genuine, something earned. It's the antithesis of the empty facade Father spent his life constructing. I established the Christina Perez Foundation to mentor and fund young entrepreneurs who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. I'm dedicating my time and wealth to lighting up the paths for others that my own family tried to darken for me. That is my purpose now. They always wanted control. They controlled my life, my money, and my narrative. They forgot that the one thing you can never control is the truth. I spoke the truth, and they crumbled. I built my life on the truth, and I stand strong. The choice is always yours. My journey is a testament. You can trade pain for power, rejection for resilience, and a toxic inheritance for genuine, self-made wealth. The end of the fight was just the beginning of the real work, building balance. It's easy to replace one obsession, family approval, with another, workaholism. True balance isn't about time management, it's about energy management. I stopped giving my energy to people who drained me and started investing it in myself. I had always been taught that self-care was selfish, a weakness. They wanted me weak. Now, my rule is non-negotiable. My peace is paramount. Saying no to overcommitment is saying yes to my own health. This isn't just about escaping them, it's about making space for joy. I reclaimed my time. The hours I used to spend preparing for holiday anxiety or crafting perfect texts are now spent on hobbies like learning Spanish and painting. I realized that being a whole person, not just a successful CEO, is the only way to truly defeat their shallow, materialistic existence. I had to learn how to accept love without suspicion. My partner doesn't demand performance, he offers acceptance. That's a revolutionary concept for me. We build trust through transparency, not secrets. My emotional safety net is now built by me with people who value honesty over optics. I shifted from chasing more to appreciating what I have. My family was defined by greed. I choose gratitude. They never had enough. I always have plenty. My happiness is now tied to the quality of my life, not the quantity of my assets. That is the fundamental difference between true wealth and mere display. My life is no longer dictated by their judgment. I developed an inner compass that points to my own truth and my own values, regardless of external pressure. This compass is the true inheritance I gave myself. It is the core of the balance I now maintain. And it is something they can never take away. I run Ambrosia with integrity, something the Perez family knew nothing about. No debt, hiding, no cutting corners, no exploiting my staff for status. My business ethics are a direct result of their corruption. I built a transparent, ethical empire because I know what happens when you build on lies. I mentor young people specifically. I teach them that the best revenge is the life you build, not the destruction you inflict. Focus on creation, not reaction. My purpose is to prevent others from sacrificing their worth to toxic relatives. I am the guide I never had. The media still comes calling, eager for more details on the Perez family's sad, quiet demise. I politely decline. The story is over. My life is private now. I chose to share my truth, but I reserve my peace. The gossip mill runs on my silence. Boundaries aren't walls, they are acts of self-respect. My boundary against the Perez family is non-existent contact and total emotional detachment. This boundary is the foundation of my balance. It allows me to look back without anger and forward without fear. Every quarter, I audit my books. I don't just check for profit, I check for clean hands. I will never let fear of failure push me to the ethical compromises they made. My $31,000 lesson ensures I remain financially and morally bulletproof. My victory is sustainable because it is built on my truth. The balance is achieved. The life is built. Now, the final step is to solidify the message, to take my blueprint for freedom and give it to you. This story has a powerful purpose beyond my own closure. It is a guide for every black sheep seeking to reclaim their joy. Here is the black sheep's blueprint for success. Step 1. Acknowledge the toxicity. Step 2. Accept that your love is not a cure for their dysfunction. Step 3. Prioritize your peace, ruthlessly. Step 4. Walk away entirely and build your own world without compromise. Your legacy is not the last name you inherited, it's the life you choose to build. My legacy is built on choice, courage, and cutting the anchor. You are not a victim of your past, you are the architect of your future. Take the materials they tried to destroy and build a palace. My balance isn't perfect, but it's real. I allow myself to be vulnerable with the right people and fiercely protective of my boundaries with the wrong ones. That messy, real happiness is the kind they could never manufacture, even with their endless desire for perfection. I succeeded not just in business, but in becoming a good person, the kind of person they only pretended to be. That moral victory is the true, final nail in the coffin of the Perez family illusion. They valued appearance, I value substance. If my story resonates with you, I encourage you to make one change today. Do one thing for your peace that your family would call selfish. Start building your own balance. My greatest milestone wasn't the first $100,000 profit. It was the first time I laughed, truly laughed, without immediately checking the room to see if it was appropriate. I realized I had spent 33 years performing happiness. Now my joy is unrehearsed, authentic, and entirely my own. That is priceless. I celebrated the milestone of rest. For the first time, I could relax without the gnawing guilt that I wasn't doing enough to earn their love or their approval. My productivity is dictated by my well-being, not my trauma. The quietest moments are now my richest. My professional milestone was making a major decision based purely on my intuition without needing a second or third family opinion to validate it. That moment of trusting my own judgment, knowing I could handle the consequences alone, was more empowering than any inheritance. Another milestone, seeing my partner react to my mistake with compassion, not contempt. He didn't use my failure as leverage, he offered comfort. It was the first time I realized what unconditional love truly looks like, free from financial ties and manipulative strings. My biggest personal milestone was the farewell to fear. The fear of being disowned, the fear of poverty, the fear of not being enough. By choosing to walk away, I faced all those fears and found them to be hollow. The freedom from that fear is my most treasured asset. These small, quiet victories, the laughs, the rest, the trust, they are the true measure of my revenge. They are the things my family could never buy or take away. Now, let's talk about the final, most crucial piece of my new life, defining a legacy built not on shame, but on joy. My definition of success no longer includes a mansion in Greenwich or a luxury yacht. It's simple. Success is the daily ability to live according to your own values. My legacy will not be a bank statement. It will be the impact I have on my staff and the community I choose to uplift. My family tree is now rooted in choice, not biology. It's made up of people who see my flaws and love me anyway, because they are whole people too. This chosen network is where my emotional wealth resides. It is the fortress that protects me from the long-dead toxicity of the Perez name. The greatest gift I can give to anyone is the gift of true, unburdened independence. That's what the Ambrosia Foundation is all about. I want to empower others to make their break, to choose dignity over duty and self-worth over inheritance. The last time I truly focused on them was when I realized I couldn't remember the sound of my father's laugh. It was a shallow sound, anyway. That realization that their memory had faded and held no power was the quietest, most satisfying personal milestone of all. People ask if I ever got closure. I say I don't need it. Closure is something they have to give you. I gave myself a finished story. My silence is my closure. My success is my closure. My happiness is the most beautiful, definitive closure I could ever ask for. My life is the evidence. My story is the proof. The only permission you need to be happy is your own. Now, for the final time, let's talk about the ultimate acceptance. Accepting yourself exactly as you are for the rest of your victorious life. I accept my past. I accept the wounds. They are no longer sources of pain. They are proof of my resilience. They make me the powerful CEO I am today. Never deny the hard parts of your story. Embrace them. They are the essential chapters that lead to your magnificent ending. The final act of revenge is the ultimate act of self-love. I forgave myself for everything I endured. I was a child. I deserved better. Releasing the blame I held against myself was the last chain I had to break. It's the highest, most valuable personal milestone of all. My life is no longer about reacting to their past. It's about creating my own future. Every new day is a blank page, filled with potential and free from their drama. The noise of the old life has completely faded. I am happy. I am whole. I am free. The greatest gift of all is the absence of anxiety. I no longer live with that cold knot in my stomach, the one that used to tighten before every call or family event. My physical body finally understands that the war is over. Relaxation is not a luxury, it is the natural state of my freed mind. I shed the weight of their expectations. It wasn't just my money they wanted, it was control over my entire existence, dictating my choices, my clothes, my time. Now my choices are simple. Do I want this? Does this bring me peace? My life is an unfiltered conversation between myself and the world. The most profound change is in my sleep. I used to fall asleep reviewing my defense strategy. Now I sleep deeply, fearlessly. This is the ultimate proof that the emotional eviction was successful. My subconscious is no longer on high alert. My peace is total. I became my own source of approval. The only validation I need comes from the woman in the mirror, the one who fought for her freedom and then built her own empire. Their rejection was never about my value, it was about their need for control. Once I realized that, their opinions became literal static. The memory of them isn't painful anymore, it's a cold, distant fact. I have finally reached the point where I can say, I am genuinely fine without you. That sentence, whispered to myself in the quiet of my own home, is the sweetest victory. They are a chapter closed and filed away. But what happened to them? And why does it truly not matter anymore? Their house sold for less than expected. Robert is allegedly consulting small businesses. Carol is still talking to the press. I hear this through friends of friends, but it's like reading about fictional characters. Their true punishment is their irrelevance to my joy. They didn't fail grandly, they failed quietly, as most narcissistic people do when their spotlight is removed. They are now just a story they can't sell. The world moved on, and they didn't. That stagnation is a consequence far heavier than any financial loss I inflicted. I check my life for regrets, and I find none regarding the separation. Cutting them off was surgical, necessary, and life-saving. My life is a testament to the fact that you can buy yourself out of a toxic contract. I purchased my freedom, and the price was fair. Toxic relationships cost more than money. They cost energy, self-esteem, and most dangerously, your potential. By extracting myself, I finally unlocked my true potential. The woman I am today could never have existed under their roof. My new traditions are simple: gratitude, honesty, and shared effort. No more performances, no more judging the guests, just genuine connection. We build memories on substance, not pretense. This is what true family, the family of choice, feels like. It is light, easy, and real. I have shown you the story, the battle, and the peace. Now, it is time for the final, enduring message. This is the last lesson I have to offer you. Let's talk about the final closure of the self. My final lesson: don't wait for your abusers to change. They won't. Your job is to make yourself inaccessible to their toxicity. Your strength is not in confrontation, it's in detachment. Save your energy for the people and projects that make you feel truly alive. Build your boundaries so solid that they become permanent features of your landscape. They are non-negotiable and absolute. The moment you let a toxic person back in, you delete all the healing you fought for. Protect your final peace relentlessly. Success is not a status to be envied, it is a feeling of deep contentment. It's knowing that everything you have, you earned with integrity and love. That feeling of self-sufficiency, of internal harmony, is the true legacy I leave behind, far more valuable than any mansion. You've walked this path with me, witnessed the pain, and celebrated the peace. Now, the story is over. But your journey, it's just beginning. My only job left is to equip you with the essential lessons I learned the hard way. This is your blueprint. Lesson 1. Toxic love is still poison. You can't heal a sick system by sacrificing yourself. Lesson 2. Your worth is non-negotiable. Never allow someone who contributes nothing to your future to control your present. Lesson 3. Detachment is not defeat. It is the most powerful act of self-preservation. Cutting the cord is the only way to build your own anchor. Lesson 4. True revenge is silence. Your success should make them irrelevant, not angry. The loudest statement is your quiet, abundant joy. Lesson 5. Define your own family. Blood is just a fluid. Loyalty and respect are the cement of a lasting bond. If you're ready to start writing your own magnificent ending, hit the like button. Let me know you're in this fight. Don't survive in isolation. Comment below and tell me which lesson resonates most deeply. Share your first step toward true independence. Subscribe to join a community of survivors, not victims. Your future is not canceled, it's waiting to be built. Choose yourself, always.